All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, class meeting for 722. Today is the unit 6 test, second test of the second semester. A little different than last time, than all the other times you're taking a quiz. It's still in quizzes, but now when you click on the quiz, instead of each question having the question on it, it has the PDF right here. So when you guys take the test, when you go to click start, it'll still say the same thing it did before, where it talks about the instructions, and you'll notice it has the test right here. You can either click on this and have it open in another tab, or you can click on this little button right here and it will show you the test. And the reason why I did this is because of all the symbols that we use here, even something as simple as the subscript and the superscript, well, those things are all they just do not jive very well with Canvas. So when I started being able to try and tell the difference between molality and molarity and all that, it really just got to be too much. So I have done it this way, and I'll probably do it this way for the rest of the tests. I will post them as a PDF, and you guys can preview them in the test. And then when you go down here, question number 1, it just says A, B, C, or D. So if you think, the answer to number 1 is hydrolysis, then you'll just go to number 1 and you'll click A. If you think the answer to number 1 is titration, then you'll go down to here and mark B. You can think of it more like a Scantron test, the way it's set up now. Yeah, so that's how you do that. And again, you can just have it open as a preview right here, but you can also open it in another tab. So if you go like this, it'll download the PDF. So, and you can click on that. And depending on which PDF program you have, it'll either open it or it'll put it down there at the bottom. And that's it. That's how you take the test. A little different than last time, but not really. Same thing, just mark A, B, C, or D. The people who have taken it so far have done fine. They figured it out. So, questions that I can help you guys with before you guys take your exam sometime today. The exam's due, as usual, by the end of the day, so later tonight. And you get 3 hours for this one. Remember, you can only take it once. Be sure not to click on the test and then instantly click submit. I don't know why it even puts those buttons near each other, but it does, which is very annoying. So go ahead and ask your questions, and I will try and answer them. Come on in, everybody. Get your questions ready. This is a question answer session. That? There we go. Dropped it again. All right. I'm here to answer any questions you might have before you go in and take your test. Maybe you took your test already. Sure. Someone wants to see calculating pH. So, boop. So there's different places to start when calculating pH. They might give you the hydrogen concentration. They might give you the hydroxide concentration, and they might give you pOH. So number 6 is kind of a good example of every single way you'd be asked to calculate pH. On the test, I mostly asked you questions like number 5, where it says like, is this acidic or is this basic? But just for the sake of your knowledge, let's go ahead and do a question like number 6. So the first one says, calculate the pH, and it gives you the concentration. So remember that pH is equal to the negative log of the concentration of H plus or H3O plus, same thing. So really all this question is asking you is to take the number they gave you and then put it into your calculator with negative log. Now, your calculator is going to be different than mine if it is not my calculator, which is just the calculator that Microsoft provides you. If you're using a Mac, I'm not familiar with the Mac calculator, but it might be backwards like this calculator is. But if you're using your, calculator that you probably have from school, like a TI-83 or a TI-84 or an 89 or whatever, then this is really easy to do. You just do negative in your calculator, you hit the log button, and then you just type it as it says there, except for the M, because that just means molarity. So how do you do it in this calculator? So this calculator, we have to go backwards. So we have to go 5 negative to give us the negative 5. And then we hit the 10x button. Now we have 10 to the negative 5th. Then if this was a number different than 1, then we would hit times that number. But this is 1, so we're going to ignore that. Then we hit log. Then we hit the negative. So the pH of 1 times 10 to the negative 5th is 5. And remember, that's what pH means. It means powers of hydrogen. So this is the negative log of that. So there are 5 powers of hydrogen. So the pH is 5. Okay. And then it gives us this number, which has a actual number in there. So we're going to do it a little bit differently than we did before. We ignored the 1. So again, instead of 1 times 10 to the negative 5th down here, we're going to plug in 4.4 times 10 to the negative 11th. So again, we got to do it backwards. If you're using the computer calculator while you're doing your test today, 11 negative 10x to give us 10 to the negative 11th. And we're going to multiply that by 4.4. And so there's a number that should look like 10 to the negative 11th. And then we hit log, and then we hit negative. Now, you'll notice, remember, pH is powers of hydrogen. So this is 10 to the negative 11th. And that means we have somewhere between 10 and 11 powers of hydrogen. And so if the answer comes out to 10.35 or 10.4, however you want to round that, then you know you did it right. If you get like 500, then that's not going to be the right answer. And then, of course, is this acid or is this base? Remember that acid is 0 to 7 on the pH scale, and base is 7 to 14 on the pH scale. And then it's reversed on the pOH scale. So pOH of 10.4 would be acidic. So this is pH, so this means that we have a base. All right, so in this problem here, we have the OH concentration. So how do you calculate the pH if you have the pOH concentration? So and again, I wouldn't ask you this elaborate on the test, but if your guys are doing AP Chem next year or in the year after, whenever you feel like it, then you may have to do something like this. And a lot of you guys were interested in AP Physics, so this doesn't seem to be above your grade when it comes to math problems. Well, there's a couple ways you could approach this. We can first just find the pOH if we wanted, which is the negative log of the hydroxide concentration. And then we can take, then we can do pH is equal to 14 minus pOH. So we can just find our answer and then do 14 minus that answer to find pH. Or we can find the H plus concentration, because H plus times OH minus is equal 10 to the negative 14th. So basically, if we want to know the concentration of the H plus, that we can then use, like we used in 6A or 6B, then we can do 10 to the negative 14th divided by our concentration of OH. There's a lot more parentheses involved in that, and then plug it into our equation. If it were me, and I used to do pH calculations like all day long, I just do it like this, where it's like, okay, fine, give me the pOH, and then the subtraction is very simple, because that way I'm not usually putting a ton of stuff in my calculator. So we'll do it that way. So we're going to do the negative log of the 2.2 times 10 to the negative 7. And again, our answer should be somewhere around 7, might be 6, might be 7 point something. So we should get somewhere in that range. If we're plugging in our calculator and we're not getting that, then we did something wrong. So remember, we start off with the number, the exponent first. So we're going to do 7. They're going to make it negative. Then we're going to do 10x. Then we're going to multiply that by 2.2. And then we're going to hit the log of that. And then we're going to hit the negative sign, just get rid of the negative sign. And it says that the pH is 6.65 or 6.66. I'm just going to say 6.7. So remember, that's the pOH. And so the pH is going to be then 14 minus the 6.7. So let's do 14 minus 6.7. Oops. .3. So what's the pH of this? 7.3. And then finally, D is an easier version of C. We can just do, remember that pH is equal to 14 minus pOH. So we just subtract 14 minus 1.4. So 14 minus 1.4, 12.6. And that's how you calculate it. But on the test, they're more like question 5, where it just simply says, like, looking at this number, is this acid, base, or neutral? And so whenever you're looking at the number and you're not actually plugging in calculations, then you just want to look at the exponent. That's why it's called powers of hydrogen, because the exponent's more important than the number. The number just kind of moves it a little bit, not that much. So like, for instance, 5A, what is this? Acid, base, or neutral? Okay, so if this is hydrogen, and if we were to plug in the negative log of this, it's going to be somewhere around 8 or 9. Okay, so what's a pH of 8 or 9? Is that acid, base, or neutral? So pHs of around 8 or 9 are going to be base, And then pOH. Well, if the pOH is 12, then the pH is 2. So what's pH of 2? Well, that's an acid. Okay. So again, same thing with this. If the pOH is going to be somewhere around 11 or 12, then the pH is going to be 13 or 3 or 2. So this is also going to be an acid. So that's how you can do that really quickly. So you want to know the difference between colloids and suspensions. Helps if you spell, right? And so it's a mixture. that has particles ranging between these sizes in the diameter, yet are able to remain evenly distributed throughout the solution. So basically, they are immiscible substances that have a particular size, and they evenly distribute throughout. So the reason why milk is still considered a heterogeneous mixture, but is not considered a solution for things like the fats. It is a solution for things like the sugars, because the sugars will dissolve in the water, but all of the fats are not in the water. They're not dissolved in the water. They are in what's called colloidal dispersion. And what that means is that they are completely evenly distributed. If you let them sit for a while, they can fall out of the mixture. They will sink to the bottom. This is what happens when you leave milk for too long. The fats will sink. And the reason why it gives you the size of particle is because when you're talking about like the medium being something like water, that's the size that they'll fit. And so usually the word suspension is just kind of used for things that, aren't water. And so also anything above that 1,000 nanometer range. So, you can also think of it in terms of the speed at which it causes them to separate. Milk sits in your fridge for a very long time, and so we call that a colloid. But if you took sand and water and shook it up, for a little while, everything's mixed together, but the sand quickly falls to the bottom, and so that's why we call it a suspension. It's just kind of momentarily suspended. There's like just there's like one question on that. Like, what is a colloid? That's about it. Or what's an example? I think it says like, what's an example of a colloid? And, the most commonly used example of a colloid is milk. So. I should probably download the TI-83 or 84. What kind of calculator do you guys have? Or which one do you use? Use your phone? That way I can kind of show you how to use it. If you don't already know. Most of you probably already know. Phone. So there's a problem with the Apples. Okay. There's a problem with the Apple's phone when it comes to exponents, so be careful with the Apple calculator. Exactly. The log in the Apple phone is weird. And so that's what I mean. I was like, there's a problem with it. If you can use something other than your cell phone as a calculator, I completely recommend that. And one of the big reasons for using something other than your phone for a calculator is when it comes to like a test like the SATs or whatever, you can't use that calculator. You can't use your phone. You can't even walk into the room. So yeah. And yeah, there's apps for better calculators. I think the TI-83 has, the 83 has an app that's not called the TI-83, but it's basically a TI-83. So, you know, you guys know what to do. You're smart. If you don't have a calculator yet, most of you guys do, since you guys are, trying to take all the AP classes or whatever. I recommend getting this calculator for the rest of your school year. The TI-30X2S. I think it's like $10, $12, depends on where you buy it. Walmart has it for $11. This calculator right here is all you really need for life. Like every calculation you're ever going to do can easily be done on this calculator. If you are going into some high level math in college, then you might want to invest in the graphing calculator at Staples, but this is about it. This is the end all and be all of calculators, unless you really need the graphing function that a TI-83 or higher, or the Casio or whatever you want to buy adds. But I mean, for $10, $11, and you're done buying calculators for the rest of your life, I don't, this calculator sucks. I don't buy that one. They try and trick you. They're just like, look, it has a screen and buttons and stuff. And it's like, no. This one. So. It comes in a bunch of different colors, man. Pink, green, blue, orange. Look at that orange. Look at that. Ooh, orange. So, cool tidbit, if you guys didn't know. The TI-83, the chip that's in the TI-83 is the same chip that powered all the computers in the space shuttle. So basically, the TI-83 is a space shuttle computer. So, pretty cool. I know the space shuttle looks like this amazingly cool piece of technology, and it was at the time, but it was more a piece of engineering, because the actual computers in it were just calculators. So, pretty cool. So if you haven't bought a calculator yet, and you're not really going to go crazy on the math, then just get a 30X2S, and you're good. Don't buy the 30X2. That thing sucks. It's got a battery in it. It doesn't have a solar panel. That's what the S stands for. And it goes dead within like a year. And the cost of the battery is like most of the cost of the calculator. Not worth it. But doing your taxes, your mortgages, budgets, all that kind of stuff, easily done on that calculator. Okay. If you guys don't have any questions further, then I'm available all day. Send me a message. You guys remember the syllabus has all the contact info on there, email address, my phone number, you text me. And then you can obviously hit, just to talk to me, and it will send me an email. It also sends, if you talk on me on here, it sends me an email. Just sometimes my phone is really slow to show me the emails if I'm not at my computer. And then I'll answer your questions as quickly as I can. That's it for today, if you don't have any more questions.